Hello everyone. Today I'll show you how to use the retro comic book Photoshop action kit. Before we get started, let's view a few examples. So with this Photoshop action kit, you get different files like Photoshop action and various comic elements, and with that you can create something like this. So this is an example comic poster that I created with all the elements that is coming bundled in this pack. So to create this image, I used these two stock images and combined them to create something like this. So in this bundle, you get 15 vector speech bubbles, 15 vector comic elements, 12 vector sound effects, and 5 comic book templates. And additionally, you get 2 comic book mockup templates. So we'll get into details when we'll be running the action and see the different elements. And this Photoshop action works in any language of Photoshop from version CS3 and above. So let's see another example. So we'll be clubbing this image and this one to create something like this. So here is an example of the comic book mockup, which is added as a free. So these are smart object replacement files. So you can simply open the smart object and add the final product that you create with these elements. Here's another one. I'm taking the subject from this image and creating something like this. So here I have used one of the frame templates that's bundled here and added some elements just to show you that you can create comic book pages out of your images. And one thing to note is that these have some retro vintage look, which is optional. You can just turn them off to get a more modern and fresh new comic book look. So this is the second mockup template, which has a comic book open style. So this is a presentation of what you can do with the second template. And here is another quick example of another comic book cover that I created using the Photoshop action and different comic elements that's coming bundled in this pack. So I'll show you the files which is coming. The first is the retro comics Photoshop action, which has a comic Photoshop action and one comic pattern, and the second one has the different files. So here is the comic book template. So here you can get 5 templates. Next we have comic sound effects. So here we have 12 sound effects, and these are all vectors, so you can scale them to any size that you want, and you can change the color effects and the stroke size, pretty much everything from here. Next we have the comic elements like different highlight boxes, caption boxes, zoom lines, speed lines, and halftone patterns. These are again vector images, and you can scale them to any size that you want. Next we have vector speech bubbles. The same properties goes for this one also. You can scale this to any size that you want. Then we have this first mockup and the second mockup. So we'll close all this and I'll quickly show you how to use a Photoshop action. So I'll break up this video into 2 parts. First, I'll quickly run the image on one of these test images, and then I'll run the action and use the different elements to create something like this. So first, let's try to build something like this. I'm taking this image. So few things you need to check is your image mode should be RGB and 8 bits per channel. Then click this layout menu and select panel options. Make sure your default masks on fill layers is checked, and also add copy to copied layers and groups are checked. And that's pretty much. So this action has been specially made so that you do not have to go through all the preliminary steps that you would need for other Photoshop actions. You can keep your image as a background lock layer or anything else. You do not You need not to rename your layers in some specific names with some lowercase or uppercase styles. You can simply let it be. The action will handle it. Only one thing is you need to create a new layer, and there you need to mark your subject area, the one that you want to convert to comic look. So here also goes two parts. You can just fill this one entirely with a color, and what will happen is the action will turn the entire image into comic look. But if you specifically want to precisely control the parts of the subject that you want to control, that you want to change to comic look, you can paint over the subject. So what I did for this test images is I painted on the subject, so that subject is only converted to comic art, and then I took this image and applied the action effect on the overall image, and then I just replaced the background of this image with the other one. So I'll show you the process one by one. So let's, for this image, mark our subject area and run the action on this image only. One good part of this Photoshop action is, like other cartoon or vectorizing action, this one does not use the oil paint filter, so you can easily use this one with the versions of Photoshop which does not have the oil paint filter. Okay, with the selection done, I'll fill it with any color. You can just use any color to fill your subject area. I missed some spot over here, so I'll quickly fill them up. I'll deselect the selection. And now we need to load our files. To load our files, go to File, Open, and browse to download package where it has the Retro Comics Photoshop Action. You will see two files, the Photoshop Action and the pattern. So select both of them and hit Open. So you will see that in the Actions panel, the Retro Comics Photoshop Action has come up. So if your Actions panel is not present, you can go to Window, Actions panel will come up. And also you can check the patterns if they're loaded in your patterns section. So to go there, you can go to Edit, Preset, and Preset Manager. Change the drop down list to patterns, and you can see that you have this comic book pattern over here. So if these are done, you're good to go. You just simply need to select this action and click play. So it will take some time. We'll fast forward from here and get back when it's done. So the action has finished rendering, and here, as you can see, the effect what I meant by marking the subject area. So the subject area that you marked has only that part of the image has been turned to this comic art look, and you have the rest of the background untouched. So you have a background color which you can change and also place your custom backgrounds here. But we'll go through all of these elements one by one, but before that I'll quickly run this action on an image with the subject area filled as the entire image, and I'll show you what I meant by that. So I'll quickly take this image, and here again I need to create a new layer to mark the area, but this time I'll just fill the entire image because I want this comic art effects to apply on this entire image and not any specific area like the previous one. So simply open your action, select it and hit play, and we'll fast forward from here and get back when it's done. So this one also has finished rendering, and as you can see, the comic art effect has been applied on the overall image. So now I'll go back to my previous image and I'll go through the elements which has been created. So here we have the background color. You can simply change it to anything that you want. If you prefer to keep this background, then we have our custom background group. So you can place your custom background images over here. We'll go over this in a short while, but before that, let's go over the other elements. Here we have 10 background color effects. You can apply them with just one click, and you can't see the effect properly because we have a solid background color. So once we place some image over here, you can see the difference. So here we have a regular background adjustments like brightness, curves, and color balance changes. Then we have our base image where we have our base image and an overlay layer. So it's better if they are kept unchanged. So here's one key element of this core image part, and that is image shadow and halftone. So here we have different halftone pattern which you can control and change the shadow areas. So here we have light shadow and halftone. This is the minimal, so you can see the difference. So if you change to medium shadow, you can see that the halftone pattern is now heavy and more areas are dark. So here is heavy shadow and halftone. And we also have our custom, so you can double click here to bring up the filter gallery, and you can also change the dot size. So if I change it to 1, you can see that it's now very fine. So you can also have complete control over this one. You can change it like this. So I'll quickly undo this to what it was previously, and here is the threshold layer. Double click on it and you can simply change it, and you can see how it's affecting the overall look. So you can control this one and make the image adjustments according to the settings that you like. So I'll just keep the light shadow and halftone for simplification. And here we have image line elements. Here we have thick lines, medium lines, and thin lines. And here we have the outline. So again, over here you can double click here and change the stroke width to control the outline. Next we have default image toning. It's better if we keep them as they are. And then we have image adjustments, standard, levels, brightness, contrast, gradient map, and image curves. So as you can see, you can change the gradient map and get a monochrome or some cool effects over your image. Next we have default overall toning. So again, it's better if they are kept untouched. Only you can increase the opacity of this wash black. So if you want to have a more vintage look with washed out black colors like they are faded, you can crank the opacity up. Next we have this group where you can place your additional comic elements like the zoom lines or texts. Different elements we'll show you in a short while. Next we have our retro vintage elements. So here you can simply hide this layer to have a clean, modern, fresh look of your comic book or page. Also you can turn it on and keep it as it is for a more worn away and washed out look. So you can expand this group and you can control the opacity of this paper texture to decrease the yellowish tinting of the old paper. Also you can select this layer masks, take a brush, any brush but preferably a soft round brush, and take color black and paint on the layer mask to hide parts of this washed out effect. As you can see, you can quickly hide them, the areas that you don't want. You can find this washed away distressed texture too aggressive, and that is because just to cover the overall image, and you always have the flexibility to hide them if you want. So it's created like that. And then we have our white noise and black noise. Next we have our 10 color effects, which you can simply toggle by clicking this visibility icon. And then we have overall adjustments like standard levels, brightness, curves, hue, saturation, and gradient map and color fill layers. So now we'll move on to the different part of this video, and that is combining different elements and creating a comic post page or a cover like this one. So until now we have gone through all the elements of the action, and so now we're moving to the next part of the video. So I'll take this image, I'll simply hide this retro vintage look because I will use this background onto the previous image, and we'll have the retro vintage look on that file affecting this image. So I'm hiding this one, and I'll also tone down this half tone pattern a bit to make it a bit more lighter. Okay, and I'm just hitting Control A or Command A, and then I'm just clicking Edit Copy Merged to copy everything that is here. And now I'm going back to my first file. I'm selecting this Place Your Custom Background Here layer, and I'm just pasting it. So now I'll just increase the size of this background and fit my canvas over here. Well, tilt this one at an angle. Okay, so here we have it, our new background behind our subject. So let's add a tint to this background that we added. So as you can see, now this background color effects are really affecting on the background image. I'll keep this one with the opacity reduced a bit. I'll keep this image as a reference. Maybe I'll add a stroke around the center subject like this image. To do that, I'll go to this image line elements. I'll double click on this outline. I'll select the stroke and click this plus icon. I'll have a secondary stroke, and I'll change the color to white and increase its size. Okay, so now let's add some zoom lines. To do that, I'll go back to my comic book kit elements files, and I'll open this 15 vector comic elements, and here I have the zoom lines. So you can simply select the file or the group like this, select your move tool, and simply drag this file layer or group onto your image. So I would want this to stay here on top of everything, so I'll drag it inside this comic element, inside this groups folder, and I don't want this white background, so I'll simply expand this one and hide this layer, comic base, zoom line space, and then I'll select this one, and I can select this rectangular marquee and right click and select free transform, and then I can transform this zoom lines to fit my image. Or I can simply control the height and the width from here. Yeah, that feels good. So I'll just quickly show you this applies for all these comic elements. You can also change the color of this lines. You can simply double click here, and as you can see, these are vector shapes. You can change the color and the size to pretty much anything. Next, let's add some text caption like this one. So for that, I'll again go to my vector speech bubble PSD file. I'll take this one, shout bubble 3. So to do that, I'll select the file, shout bubble, I'll select this move tool, I'll drag it and drop it in my image. So I'm again hitting Ctrl T or Command T to resize this one. Maybe I'll flip this one vertically so that this points to this object. And now let's type something. I'm creating a new layer, taking the horizontal type tool, making my font selected to Comic Sans MS. I'm having bold italic, and let's type something. Let's increase the font size a bit. I'll just increase the spacing. And keep it to let it rumble. Now let's add some header like this. So I would want all these elements to have this retro vintage effect applied, so I'm doing it at a level below this retro vintage layer. So if I do this above this layer somewhere here, so this will not get applied. I'll show you quickly. I'll just take this short bubble out and place it here. So as you can see, it's out of this, it's above the retro vintage layer, so it's looking odd. It's outside, it's not having that vintage distressed look applied. Okay, so I'll create a new layer here, but I would want the text to appear behind this subject, so I need to put it somewhere below this base image. So I can put it here above this custom background, creating a new layer here, selecting my type tool and I'll select this font. Let's type nose grind and increase the font a bit, maybe increase some spacing. Okay, let's add some drop shadow. Let's change the color to orange and blending mode to normal, or we can change it to blue. Let's keep it to orange and then add another drop shadow. With black maybe, and let's see if we can add some white stroke. Okay, so I'll again increase the size a bit and then quickly reposition it to the center of the document. Let's add some text on top. To do that, I'll create a new layer again over here. I'll select this part and add a solid color. Create a text layer over here. I'll select color white this time. I'll take this font again. Let's say we'll type something like this: king sized double issue. We'll just increase the spacing a bit. That looks good. And let's align it to the middle. Yeah, that should be fine. Yeah. And now if you want to add tags like issue number or price or release date, you can again go to this vector comic elements, and then you can use this badge too. I'll just select the move tool and drag and drop it here, then resize it. Or I can place it here and add some text. I'll quickly change the font to something else and the color to black. Maybe issue number. I'll increase the font a bit more. Duplicate the layer for the month. With June 8, 84. Yeah, something like this. So overall this conveys the meaning, and I'll quickly go over the vector comic sound elements, and I'll show you can also drag these layers. Take one of them, select with the move tool, and drag and drop it here, just like that. It's that simple. So you can mix and match all of the elements, the different elements, lots of elements added, and see how you can make the best use of them. You can change the colors of these vector elements to anything that you want, and also change individual elements stroke size, alignment, and adjustments. So this is how you can create a comic book cover or a comic book page. So I try to give a quick idea on how to use the different elements, but you can always explore a bit more and take your own creativity and take the composition to a whole new level. I hope you like this retro poster Photoshop action kit and you get some inspiration and ideas to create your own comic book and tell your own story. So if you like this one, stay subscribed for more content. Till then, stay creative.